What up, Gabriel here? Coming at you with episode 2 of the Hell of a Card series. This time we're going to be taking a look at Tiresome Climb. Probably one of my favorite cards in the DLC. Maybe even the single favorite one. Had a pretty big jump in value from pre-DLC to post-DLC. Mainly just, because Days is so useful. Like, really, it's the Days portion that of this card that kind of kicked it into overdrive. But, it's just a super versatile card. It's almost always worth adding at least one of to your deck. And I'd almost say often if you see it, it is the card you should add to your deck. You need pretty good reasons not to. It just solves too many damn issues. It's defense. It can be offense as well. All of the normal reasons Hidden Passage is good. Basically the same reasons Tiresome Climb will be good. Then you just add Days on top of that, and you got one monster of a card. It's so versatile at what it can do. You can still use it to overstack your own floor. That Dazed might mean that a wave or two is more awkward than it would have been had it been Hidden Passage, but sometimes it doesn't even matter. Sometimes it's something like you're just bringing up a Keeper of Echoes or some unit that's just kind of a utility. And in that case, it'll still do its job even if it's dazed. There's some rare scenarios too, like you might have a resin removal where you can just remove the daze immediately as you do it. But I will say, I think basically the last use of this should be overstacking your own floor. You really should be adding it primarily as a way to daze bosses, particularly Divinity, but don't underestimate how good this is at just dazing every single boss in the game. Even the minor bosses, the ones that are not flying, even those, this can be a godsend against. As we've kind of talked about in kind of the change to the DLC video, vanilla over to DLC, the best defense these days is just a good offense, or alternatively just preventing them from attacking altogether. It's hard to put out enough defense or defense-related buffs such as regen to really deal with the likes of some of these sharded up bosses. Even something like a high shard rage fell is going to do a ton of damage to you. And in the case of these flying bosses, you can just keep stacking dazed with this. Another nice thing about it is, unlike Ritual of Battle, which really does need upgrades to shine, this one doesn't need any to do its job and do it pretty well. But even though it doesn't need them, it makes use of almost every possible upgrade you can think of super, super well. I mean, there are 2 Divine Temple upgrades that are amazing on it. Obviously the Value Stone, bring it down from 2 to 0 Ember. But I would say even more importantly, the Seek Stone, the Intrinsic enabler. Basically, have it in your opening hand. That enables so much top floor setups against Divinity. I can't tell you how useful that is. Just a godsend on any run. It really enables just a game-winning strategy. This card alone with that upgrade will do that. And, as far as the Merchant of Magics are concerned, Ember Stone's your most likely candidate. You'll always want at least one Ember Stone on it. But basically, you can't remove Consume on it, of course, but all the other big upgrades are amazing on this. Permafrost, just freeze it for when you need it. That's pretty amazing. I mean, that's going to be really useful for guaranteeing you have it on the right turn, for particularly those minor bosses. You think of a case like Stealth Boss, it'll even just burn up 2 things of stealth, right? Or any of those Ring 5 bosses, particularly the multi-striking one that will cut through basically any setup that you have, just like butter. He's not that tanky, so if you just daze him for 2, even better if you can double stack. Speaking of other upgrades that are good, double stack is great on it. It's not a bad thing at all to have days 4. Also, it has great artifact synergies. The Iron Drop Cage basically innately double stacks it. And even holdover is not horrible. Get it down to 1 or 0 ember and hold it over, and that's not a bad thing. And even beyond the bosses, even beyond overstacking your own units, and it is still, like I said, has all the normal hidden passage greatness with like displacing enemy units, but it even has another advantage over hidden passage in that you can basically, since you're most likely setting up top floor most of the time, you can use it to basically eliminate these kind of threatening backliners, right? You're not always going to have good AoE or good single target removal or some quick sweeper type situation. In those cases, a sharded up Shade Wing or even a Light Wing can really ruin your day. And beyond just the fact that it'll prevent the damage to your units, it also, in some cases, if you weren't going to kill it, it'll save your run by preventing the damage to the Prior. You bring it up, it's dazed, your Prior will kill it. I doubt there's any backliner, even with some armor, that's going to survive enough to, survive 2 Prior hits. So I don't know, it's just super versatile, and I'm gonna outline real quick what I'm talking about there. I don't think we really need to look too much into the data. You can look into the last video, the Ritual Battle, and you'll see Tiresome Climb's data represented there. All you need to know really, like upgrade-wise, I literally use them all. Like all of them are useful. Basically, whatever you see in the shop, you don't have to be that greedy unless you have a very specific reason that you're hunting for one. I would just lock in any of them, lock in. Like maybe leave a slot open for intrinsic if you are really hoping to use it as a divinity solution. But other than that, if you see value stone, lock it in, double stack, permafrost, lock those in. That's going to be pretty good. So let's quickly look at just a quick set of scenarios, kind of outlining the versatility of this card. Alright, so got a little stupid diagram here for kind of showing how versatile it might be. So, we got the obvious scenarios of like overstacking. So, say you start turn 1, you have somebody, we'll just say it's like a frontline champ here. We'll say frontline champ. You draw another unit, you put it back here. Let's say it's like some backliner. Oops. This is sorry, I'm not like super familiar with this software. This is pretty makeshift, whatever the fuck I'm doing here. Okay, can you fucking let me? Okay, backline dude. And then, so say you got that, and common thing you might do is just go intrinsic and free stone on your Tiresome Climb. That way, if you need it to use it for divinity, you can use it. If not, it's there to overstack if you need it, or just to use it on enemies. So, in the case that you draw, say turn 2, you draw like your utility unit / additional backliner, either one. You can basically, you got your pip here's already filled up here. You basically just okay, this is gonna be harder than I thought. You yeah, you do something. You do this Tiresome Climb basically. Sure, that looks cool, right? So Tiresome Climb, we'll move him up back here. That's your typical overstack type situation. Now that is the lowest value I think that you can get from Tiresome Climb. It's still worth it. You don't always find hidden passage, and sometimes you have a build that could really just benefit from overstacking, and hey, Tiresome Climb gets the job done. But where it really shines is particularly these flying bosses. So, let's say you have Divinity is the most common candidate Oh my god, this thing. Okay, can I move it here? So obviously Divinity is, gigantic and sits on every floor. And, oh my god. Divinity. It's not turning out as smooth as I planned. But, you just set up, in this scenario, probably we don't care about overstacking, but we just set up our floor. Let's say everything, backline squishy dude who's not really going to survive much. You might not even have much defensive scaling, but you're at least good for 4, between 2 to 4 turns, depending on if you're able to double stack it or get Iron Drop Cage. So, in that case, you just stun this fucker. Oh my god, the fuck. Yeah. We'll say stun the fucker. And by stun, I mean daze. You get the picture, though. Here, we'll say daze. Daze Divinity, sure. Very professional. So that's, I would say, the most bread and butter use of it. Or the most guaranteed value. It's, if you're going for Divinity kills, if you can find any way to make top floor work, it's absolutely your best chance. These waves get out of control very fast. And the more time you have to set up, the better. The more time you have to shoot enemies before they get to you, the better. The more time you have to manipulate them, the better. So on and so forth. And so, even then, though, let's say it's not Divinity. Let's say it's just Seraph the Patient. You have a lot of options with Seraph the Patient. And, this can extend to every flying boss. The Patient, say any version of Seraph or any flying boss, but particularly the Patient, you have a lot of options here. It's like, you might even want to set up, say, down here against Patient if you can afford the pip space. Okay, I can't promote this fucking software, draw.io. It's not really super handy, but say turn 1 or any turn really. You have the Seraph the Patient dude. Daze/ascend Patient. And actually Talos would be another good example. Because Talos is similar to Patient, hits you every turn. So now, first thing in the turn, if I have Tiresome Client in hand, and this is my main floor and Patient's here, I just want to move him upward. Maybe I can even do that. Yeah, cool. So, not only does that daze him, and he won't be able to attack me the next turn that he comes down, but now if I need to put imps down or tombs down, he will not trigger rallies. If I need to play spells here, if I have an incant deck especially, or an inspire deck, I don't have to spam him a bunch of stats. So now, he's going to be dazed and moved off the floor. But really, any flying boss, it's like if you think you can basically daze him with Tiresome Climb, either through holdover or double stack, or you just have a few Tiresome Climbs / Tiresome Climb and something else like a Soul Crushing Guilt. It's absolutely worth it if you can spare, the Ember to do that. Basically, try to start stacking days on the flying bosses. That way, you basically just, it's pretty. I can't think of too many times that I dazed a boss a significant amount of times that I lost. Even with a pretty poor scaling deck, you should be able to probably beat Seraph the Patient. I mean, if you got through ring 7, I have to imagine you probably can kill Seraph if you have a few stacks of days. But, you don't have to go mid, by the way. This is just an example of how to avoid the rallies and avoid the incants. You can still just, this could just as easily set up top. Oh my god, why is that so hard to move these fucking things? he's not going to move to the pyre, unless it's relentless, of course. If it's a relentless, you don't want to play it there. But, you know, in this case, you just daze flying boss. Sure, that works. So that's, I'd say, the second best use is the flying bosses, just either moving them off your floor, preventing them from attacking you if they're ones that do attack, but also just stacking days throughout the fight so that once the actual relentless rounds start, they can't do shit to you. And then also beyond the flying bosses, you have just kind of your normal mini bosses. Anything from stealth boss to just any boss. We'll just say mini boss. I would say this is the third best use case of it, particularly if you have double stack and or permafrost. But the ideal scenario is that you hit them right here. Now if you draw it here and you're not permafrosted, you might as well still hit them here. But the ideal scenario is you hit them right before they get to your floor, and then you daze mini boss, bring them to your floor. And it's almost always worth it to do this if you're always wondering, unless there's like really specific scaling that you're looking for. There's not many situations where bringing the boss up and having a baseline of 2 days, maybe 4 days if you're really cooking. Not many scenarios that not playing it right here would make sense. It's like a triple negative. Basically, most scenarios, if you have Tiresome Climb in this scenario, or even this scenario, and it's not like held over a permafrost, you should just play it on the boss. That way they come in with at least some days. Even down here, they'll come in with at least 1 day in that scenario. So that's the third best scenario. And even outside of bosses, like I said, you have your normal type of enemy situations. So, you know, let's say you got the, oh my god, fucking hell, say tank enemy, like threatening backliner. Let's just say Shadewing. It's the dudes that do like 1,000,000 damage in multi-strike. And let's say, you know, you got the X mark here. You're killing that one, but this guy's not dying. Well, you know, he's gonna hit you, so that's not good. But more importantly, he's gonna hit your pyre. Hey, not if you got Tiresome Climb. Tiresome Climb, don't bring the tank up. You know, that's what you'd have to do with Hidden Passage. If you wanted, like, you might be inclined to do that with Hidden Passage, depending on what type of tank it is. But with Tiresome Climb, just move them up. You know, they'll be dazed. Your pyre will kill it. Even if it has a bit of armor, you're doing, 80 damage by that point in the game? And this applies to anything. Quill Hunters, whatever point in the game you're at, basically just bring that backliner up, your pyre will kill it. And it's just the same as if you had removed it, right? And sometimes maybe you even have like blood for blood and you get health for it. This actually has pretty good synergy in that case. You know, 5 fire HP is actually pretty nice here and there. So, you know, just say bring to pyre room to remove it. So that's a pretty good use of it. Or similarly, let's say they were here and you had it. Same thing applies. You could really crunch the numbers and try to find out if you are going to kill them or not, but maybe even beyond that, like I said, if your dude doesn't have, say, quick, you don't have Light's Gift, you don't have any like vent or anything consistently coming to kill this Shadewing, but let's say on this turn, you know, before this dude's coming to your floor, you do have Tiresome Climb. Well, you might as well bring him up. He'll be dazed and you can kill him. He's not going to do 1,000,000 damage to your frontliners, right? So, you know, just Bring Shade Wing up to the floor, dazed. You and even if you're not killing him, most of the time your pyre will kill it. I don't need to like spell this out, but let me just quick diagram like something like that. So like let's say you already had, you know, a floor here where you're already dealing with your own Shade Wings. You know, tank and Shade Wings. And there's going to be more than this, but I don't want to like diagram everything out. Oh my god, this fucking software. Okay, so whatever, I'm just going to delete that. So in this scenario, you know, oh my god, I'll never use this software again, by the way. So let's say you have the X mark here. You have the X mark here, so you're killing them. But let's say you bring him up and there's no X mark. That's fine, because again, you brought him up, he's dazed for 2. By the time, then he'll just march on up to the pyre. He'll still have a daze. Most likely your pyre will kill a Shade Wing in 1 hit. Outside of some massive armor situation. So it's super useful there as well. Again, it's basically like removing the enemy at that point. Similarly, let's say, different scenario, let's say that, you know, let's say you do have just a backline sweeper with quick. Well, in that scenario, you don't want to bring Shade Wing up necessarily, but you may want to displace the tank in this case. Let's say it's like the very first wave, you haven't met the wave yet. But, you know, maybe in this scenario, you have just the, like, shield tank. In a lot of scenarios, the shielded tank might have less health than this tank. You can do the classic hidden passage move and basically bring the shielded tank up this turn. That way you don't have to deal, like, even though your backline sweeper is quick and it'll kill the Shade Wings just fine, your front line that has to finish off the tanks might not be able to finish off both these tanks. So in that scenario, if you just bring the shielded tank up, they don't do much damage, if any damage at all. Maybe they have some spikes and that's about it. Then you can either kill it here, depending on how much damage you have, or if not, it'll just go onto the pyre, and that's fine. At least your front line this next turn will get its full damage in on this tank. Even if it doesn't kill it, it might be the difference between surviving and not surviving. You know, you don't always have the ideal scenario, but hidden passage really helps make the best of a bad situation. And that's really it, I think. Again, I do think overstacking is lower on the rung than even this situation, typically. But it's still useful. I think, though, if typically you're using hidden passage as if you're using Tiresome Clam as a bad hidden passage, you're not getting the proper value out of it. Really, you want it for that daze, but the fact that it ascends just makes so many, just makes your options of what you can do with the card very vast, right? So I don't know, hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if it was. So we've done Ritual so far and Tiresome Climb. If there's anything I missed, or if there's any additional questions you have about Tiresome Climb, just let me know. And if there's any particular card that you'd be interested in, also let me know in the comments. If not, I kind of have a list I'm going through, and I'll just stick to it. But if there's any requests, I will usually fulfill them. And as long as it's a card I think is good. If it's not a card I think is good, I'm just not going to do it in this series. But as always, thanks for watching, and peace.